All right. You're good.
So I guess, am I unmuted already?
Yes. If someone's talking, I can't hear.
You gotta unmute your
Okay. All right. So my name is Hannah Dawson. I have the pleasure to start the presentation of our OSINT dashboard project for INFSYS 38586858. My team members are Bryce Benjamin, myself, Natalie Fisher. We got Mr. Klein, Mr. LaFata, Mr. McGuire, Mr. Sylvester, and Mr. Wyatt. Next slide, please. So this is a brief introduction about our project, about the team members and their respective roles within the project. We had divided our project between graduate teams and undergraduate teams. The graduate team was responsible for the project management, and that included Ms. Fisher, Mrs. Sylvester, and Mrs. Dawson, and undergraduate students were responsible for creating the code, implementing the code, and executing it. Now, graduate presenters will discuss the project overview and the scope. Later on, both graduate and undergraduate presenters will go over each project step in chronological order, and the undergraduate presenters will then present the code in action. Presenters will then discuss findings and conclusions of the projects, and we will have some time for questions and answers afterwards. Next slide, please. The project overview and scope. The project of the OSINT dashboard has the goal of collecting and analyzing intelligence using public data. The project length was 8 days, and the allocated budget for this project was $20,640. The following steps were concluded in this project. We identified a source, then data harvesting was done. Data was then processed and integrated, analyzed. We then did some testing and quality assurance, and are able to present those results now in this presentation. Is that the next slide? Mm-hmm. Right. Team communication for this project was done mainly through Discord and also with the use of Google Drive. Both were implemented at the beginning of the course and were used throughout, well, at the beginning of the project and were used throughout the course of the project. Next slide, please.
If you want, he can show Discord on there real quick.
Yes. That's fine, or I can talk a little bit more about Discord while you pull it up. One important step for this project was the risk assessment and the risk management. And the purpose of assessing risk and creating a risk management plan is to foresee, to plan for potential risks that could potentially affect the project, and also to create a appropriate response. The goal of this is to ensure project continuity and to mitigate and reduce any type of interruptions that could negatively affect the project. After identifying potential risks and then also classifying each risk's impact level and the likelihood of occurrence of that risk, an appropriate response was chosen and then captured in a plan, and that plan was then duly communicated with each team members, as it is essential for each team member to know how to respond to a risk as it occurs. Next slide, please. So in order to do an appropriate risk assessment, what we did was we identified the stakeholders and the project needs. Stakeholders would be our instructor who assigned the project to us. Stakeholders would be the project management team as well as the team employees. We created project standards, guidelines, and procedures that we worked by. We had to analyze our assets, which included the data that we were capturing. That was probably our most valuable asset. We analyzed the threats and vulnerabilities that would potentially occur or did occur during the process of capturing that data, including each asset's risk impact and the likelihood of each of those risk impacts. We assess physical protection applied in case of natural disaster, for example, as getting hit by a tornado over the course of the project or something like that, or energy outages, anything like that. Then we also conducted technical and procedural reviews and analysis of the network architecture that we use, the software and the tools, which means we were looking at different specs and requirements needed to execute specific software tools, to access certain website or any type of technical requirements that are needed to create the code and execute those codes, for example. We did also a review. We also reviewed a logical access and other authentication mechanisms, making sure everybody had access to the Discord chat, everybody had access to the Google Drive, to ensure that the communication can flow continuously and nobody is ever left out of the project. In addition, we also reviewed current level of security awareness and commitment of staff within the team. In that step, we made sure that everybody was aware of any potential security risks, their individual awareness of security issues and security procedures, and their commitment, individual commitment of ensuring the highest level of security protection. We also developed a practical and technical recommendations to address vulnerabilities identified and reduce the level of risk security. Next slide, please. This is an example risk management plan log entry. And in that log entry, you will see different columns. The first column would talk about the current status of that risk, and that is open because the project will not be completed until this presentation is over. Risk impact identifies the level of impact that particular risks will have on the project. In this case, in this example, the risk impact is high because the actual risk is that the project management team disengages, which has a strong effect on the project because the project management team are the ones that are supposed to be leading that project. And obviously, if the team disengages, it'll affect the outcome of the overall project and also likely affect the morale of any other team members. The probability of occurrence here is medium. Just because within any group, there's always a chance of disengagement, and this is a project that was done within a course measure and not done paid by the hour or anything. So, and the likelihood actually was probably a little bit higher than in a regular paid environment for a project. The risk map here is red. The risk map is calculated based on the indicators that are chosen for each risk for the risk impact and also the probability of the occurrence. And because the risk impact is high and the probability of occurrence is medium, that shows that the risk map is red. The risk description column then describes what the actual risk is. Here, as I said earlier, it would be the project management team disengaging in the project communications and the meetings. The next column is the project impact. That speaks on how it actually affects the project, which is what I mentioned earlier. The risk area would be, oops, I apologize, there's a mistake. The risk area would be strategic because it would strategically affect the project. Wouldn't be a technical difficulty or anything, but a strategic situation, a strategic issue. Symptoms of the risk are named here, and then triggers that could potentially trigger that risk coming or that risk occurring. The risk response strategy here would be mitigation, and the response strategy would be to initiate communication with disengaged team members and make efforts towards re-engagement of those. And this is done for all types of risks, and the completed risk management plan will be then uploaded to Canvas, including all risks. Then the earned value analysis, that'll be Ms. Sylvester.
Okay, on the earned value analysis
I think you have to unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself.
Hello. With the earned value analysis report, we have a total budget cost of $20,640. Within that budget, some of the tasks that were addressed are listed in the spreadsheet, which consists of creating a concept. That time was used amongst the undergrads and also the grads. The numbers reference the numbers of days that we worked on the project. So in order to create a concept, the budget amount was $1,500. And then on our next task, we had to develop processes for intel collection. And then again, based on the number of days, based on 8 days, which we got started on the second day, the cost was broken down in each column, which gave us a total for that particular day of $3,620. Our next task was to create the OSINT dashboard prototype. Again, we did this within an 8-day time period. That cost came up to $1,600. Then next task we have is to develop the dashboard. Develop the dashboard was primarily done by the undergrads, and the days are broken down based on about 7 days, and that came up to $2,800. Next category, we have the Create Software program. Again, we have the undergrads that addressed that based on 8 days, which came up to $1,900. Then we have a generate report for analysis. That was done over 5 days, and that came up to $1,300. Present reports, which that came over the last couple of days, which basically both groups, we kind of gathered the information to combine it to put the actual report together. And then our last one was the project management. Project management was the bulk of our budget, which was broken down over 7 days. And this brings us to our total budget of $20,640.
And before we get into the specifics, I'll just kind of go into more of some scope statements. I know that we got the project overview and we've understood more of the project management piece. But as far as the getting a little, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Did you hear me the other part?
No, we hear you net.
Oh man, I literally just okay. I just wanted to say, so we heard from Hannah about the risk management, and then as far as the earned value management from Sabrina. So I just wanted to kind of give a little bit more of the project overview and scope statements before we get into specifics. So we talked about our project being an OSINT collection, and as part of the OSINT acronym, we've used open source intelligent to collect the data and analyze it. The parameters for this project was to use 2 social media sites, Twitter and Reddit, and using the parameters of GPS coordinates to capture tweets, and using the discussions and subreddits for those that include .onion. That's where we kind of go from here, but that was the essential scope statements. And the objective, of course, is to look at the software code so we can move on to our first wrapper.
you hear now?
Okay, cool.
Okay. It sounds horrible with the laptop.
For the Reddit piece, what we are doing at the beginning is taking a user input of the subreddit they'd like to search. And from that subreddit, we are taking a look at the user ID, the title, and the body, the information for those three fields from that post. And we are filtering by the string.onion in an attempt to find posts that contain that string based on the subreddit we're looking at. From there, we are printing that out to a CSV file and creating a different file for each subreddit that we're looking at to help with the data analysis. That's about it.
Okay, so first looking at the Reddit data results, we pulled 639 total results containing .onion links from across 4 different subreddits. We were able to pull links out of all of those from all but 3. However, we had an unusually high number of missing ID, title and body posts. And we'll get into some of the more nitty-gritty of the data results in the next slide. So first thing that I looked at was repeating URLs to try and find both popular URLs in general and then also popular URLs that were tied to a specific ID. So the pie chart on the right contains the most popular URL linked back to a Reddit ID, which was the People's Drug Store, the dark web's best online drug supplier. And then if we just look at straight URLs not necessarily tied to an ID, we have the most common repeating one with a number of 4 being the .onion/galaxy2 link in that table below. Move on to the next slide. So here we looked at the number of titles by ID. So what I was looking for were reoccurring IDs to try and pinpoint a specific user posting a lot of the .onion links. However, what I found was it was a pretty standard distribution except for the default ID, which is just ID. So there weren't any outstanding users there. And then I also included the stat at the bottom to show that we were missing a good amount of ID fill-ins from the data we pulled. So this could be because people are posting anonymously or for some other reason. So if we move on to the last slide, we have body content. So this was just something I thought would be interesting to look at, a short summary of the body of these Reddit posts to see if there were anything similar. What I found, obviously, by far the most common body title was psychedelics and subscriptions. And then also I pulled a couple of other ones that I blew up here so that you could read. As an anonymous chat service with absolutely no rules, as far as I can tell, you can simply hit a button and you're launched into chat room with one other person. It does support links. However, it doesn't support video or images. And then another one talking about an experience on a random Tor chat. Some of the other interesting ones, the smaller ones that didn't have as many posts containing them, we had PayPal's, espionage, LR. Yeah, that's it for the Reddit data analysis.
So next is Twitter code. So what we wanted to do was enter GPS coordinate, latitude, longitude coordinates, and a search radius, and be able to pull the most recent tweets from that area. So what this code does is it takes the 200 most recent tweets from any given coordinates, and it saves the results to a CSV file. And for the purpose of our analysis, we chose to use the White House as our example.
And with just about 2 minutes of captured data, we found we were able to fill that 200 message tweet cap within 2 minutes, little under actually. So within such a quick period of time, most users tended to only be able to get one tweet out, but we did have one extraordinary user, Ricardo Perez Pendello, who was able to get out 20 tweets within that 2-minute period. Next slide. Oh, actually go to, can you, and then we also have so we ran that through Maltego as well, and have a quick Maltego transformation for this user. It doesn't appear that he has any connections directly to the White House. He seemed to have been a doctor of some sorts, and it turns out he may have just been taking a vacation there, but being a very active user very near to the White House, we were able to capture his data. The doctor being located from the Dominican Republic, at least according to his Twitter profile.
So that's the Maltego report.
And this is a overview of the Maltego report found of people of the retweets and conversations between this user. Now, these are not precisely the tweets that we captured, but these are just more recent capture data from his more recent activities. That's all I have. And now we're moving on to a code demonstration of the GUI and code running in tandem.
Okay, according to you can see according to our GUI, we had 3 options, but we only developed for 2 of them, the Reddit and the Twitter. We saw in the previous slides exactly how they work, so I'll just go through a quick demonstration. For the Reddit OSINT, click the button. We enter whatever we want to, whatever subreddit we want to search. One of the ones I think would be web. We hit submit. You see in the top terminal, it scraped 200 posts, and then it created a CSV file. For that, for the Twitter is similar, but we want to go ahead and enter the consumer keys. Just real quick. Into the longitude and latitude of the White House. Yep. Within 10 meters. And kilometers, 10 kilometers. So submit. And we'll see up here. Interesting. This is where we, you can see here in the download links, we have our Twitter data.csv. We built a CSV of all the data we just scraped, and then down here for the Reddit data. And then we titled those according to the subreddit, so it'd be easy to discern. Barring any further questions, that's the end of my demonstration. like you mentioned earlier, some of those weren't successfully scraped or just didn't exist. But we did get the bulk, exactly what we're looking for, all the onion files, or the onion links. I'll go and pull up the Twitter data. And we're seeing the first column, username, and then what the actual tweet was, and then the third is what the actual time, etc.
What was the limit with Twitter? Could be 10 minutes or what? In terms of the actual API roles.
Yeah,
We
so
just got the most recent 200.
yeah, you can only pull so many in a 15-minute window. Which is what we found out. We tried to do 1,000 and it blocked us out for 15 minutes. So yeah, we had to limit it down to 200.
What about Reddit? Does Reddit have a limit, or they're pretty much wide open?
I think it was more kind of be courteous and be sensible about it. I